Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, dear Master President Díaz-Canel, for receiving me in your house, in this beautiful Cuba, in this wonderful island we love so much. Thank you all for being here today. My first words will be of gratitude to Cuba for this brilliant organization and this solidarity expressed to us. Cuba is a brotherly people to Argentina who we particularly love. I would like to express my appreciation to every one of you, countries composing G77 plus China, because you've always been alongside Argentina with its claim over the sovereignty of the Malvinas Islands. You know, we've been claiming the UK to sit again at the table of negotiations to solve within the multilateral logic problems that arise, which is not others than to see our territorial sovereignty broken of our Argentine lands. To all of you who accompany us, thank you very much. The President of Republic Dominican was stating recently that it is a change in the time, and I believe it's a great definition to understand what's going on. The world is not the world we used to know. It is not the world that was conceived during the Washington Consensus, where globalization was a huge village, a very naive view of the world, where all of us could enjoy meetings of the nations. Globalization very slowly failed, and now if you take a look at the present, you can see that there's a change, like President was stating before, a change that shows a Germany that has lost. The U.S. hegemony is not what it used to be. It shows crisis in Europe, Brexit first, and now with the Russian war in Ukraine, with the invasion of Russia into the Ukrainian territory. Also, the rise of China and India that change world trade substantially. Within this scheme, we can see the BRICS, a new nation group that represent 44% of world populations, a group of nations that are more than G7, which is the group that was born after Second World War to join developed countries, the powers of the North. Now, that world, why is it changing? Because the COVID-19, and it showed inequality in the world. That was the exact moment where we saw that 90% of the vaccines was at the hand of 10 powerful countries in the world, and that the 90% of humanity was looking for vaccines in the world. That was the moment where we saw with great laboratories impose countries conditions to access vaccines. Some of countries did not accept those conditions, and we fight those conditions. It was at that moment during the pandemic that showed that 11 fortunes in the world that have so much money, over 40% of the world's population, that inequality makes us rethink the world. And there, the South, G77 plus China, has a lot to say. I come here from the G20. In the G20, we approved something of a strict justice, that the African Union be part of the G20. And why do I say is an act of justice? Because Africa has been, over the course of years, a continent that was ripped off its wealth by Europe and the powers. And this is a reparation act, maybe a late one, but it guarantees that that ripping off no longer continues over Africa. It is necessary to sound and to resound the African voice in the G20. And I also claimed that next year, when Brazil presides over the G20, ECLAC be incorporated into the G20. And why did I ask this? Because it is not possible that the Caribbean, which is the region that mostly suffers the climate crisis, it is not possible that that Caribbean voice is not represented. It is urgent that Caribbean has a voice because of cyclones, typhoons, the increase of sea level. They hurt the most to Caribbean countries. In this pain that causes climate crisis, and that we all suffer. I come from a country that endured the worst drought in 100 years, that prevented us exports that represent 3% of its GDP. When I speak of this, my solidarity with the Morocco people, with the Libyan people that just suffered a catastrophe. Now, for that situation to change, to be altered, the first thing to do is to change the financial international system that keeps on working with the same logics. Once again, you see the World Bank and the IMF applying the orthodox logics that took us to this crisis state, this state of income concentration and the distribution of poverty around the world. How much more can we endure this? How much more can we go on without changing this? All of this that I'm stating, I like to clarify, I not only say this to you, who I presume feel the same way I do. I said that at the G20, and I also said it at the G7 in Munich a year ago when the war was just getting started. How long, how much more will we endure the IMF dictating rates by the US government and implementing surcharges like to Ecuador, Barbados, Argentina, Egypt, Ukraine? You worry so much about Ukraine, and then you charge it so much. This needs to be changed, otherwise the world will not be the world we deserve. The world has a dominant world and a dominant world, and that needs to stop once and for all. And us, we, Global South actors, have a huge tool, because here we have what the Central world needs. What do they need? They need food. Food that are produced in South America and in other places of the South Hemisphere. They need energies. Energies that are found in the Arab countries, energies that are in Argentina. We have the second non-conventional energy in the world. They need lithium. Well, let it be known, 2/3 parts of lithium are found in Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. We have a huge opportunity to demand equality. All of this happens while in this time change that Luis was telling, it'll be also a technological revolution. And that revolution cannot condemn us once again. We are countries that we've known how to develop science and technology. I come from a country that has developed biotechnology like very few in the world, that was able to develop a wheat seed so it can grow in places where water is scarce. I come from a country that builds nuclear centrals, and I also come from a country that has developed nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, for the treatment of cancer. I come from a country that creates satellites and its own propulsor so that it can no longer has to rent it in Florida, and we do this in our territory. Now, all of this that we do in Argentina, if we would get together and do it together, wouldn't it be great if we coordinate the efforts? Wouldn't it be more valuable? It is very clear that we live in a country, in a time where the technical revolution is unstoppable. I clarify that Argentina has the most unicorns in Latin America. I come from a country where knowledge economy is the third exporter. I am not expressing against new technologies, but what I'm trying to say is that new technologies, if they continue to grow, they will bring huge problems to the global south. New technologies are not social networks or just internet, who have owners, who carry out businesses, who get into our lives as societies, who influence on our societies. New technologies also developed artificial intelligence and robotica. And you know what this means? Less work for the human beings. What is the answer that we will have to face this new reality? This is the debate we need to engage in, and we must not be afraid. You know why? Because we have the capability to face this. I'm in an island called Cuba. 60 years ago, and from that day on, has been blocked by the U.S. The U.S. has influenced over the world to punish this island for 60 consecutive years. But in this island, they've developed science, technology, COVID vaccine, completely alone and with much effort. Are there not scientists and technical professionals in Cuba? Of course there are. Could we not join efforts between Cuba, Argentina, Brazil, who develop science and technology without and stop depending on others? In Argentina, I have candidates who want to take over, who say that Argentina cannot produce science and technology, but that is not true. That's a lie. We need to do it. We have the scientists, the technicians, we have the same problems. We know what we must do. If we have conscience of this, it'll all be easier. Argentina has the privilege of having 5 Nobel Prize awardees in its history. Those 5 Nobel Prize came out of the public university. Argentines are proud of free of charge public university, like Cuba. Bernardo José is one of the Nobel Prize awardees of Argentina, and he used to say that scientific development of Latin America was so important, as well as Argentina's, because if Latin America in the end progressed and developed, well, then Argentina would develop equally. And he said something else. They want us to make us believe that we cannot invest in science. Science is not expensive. Ignorance is. Lack of education is. Lack of scientific development is. Lack of technology is. That is expensive. I think everything I'm saying we can do. And because this is a time of changes, we need to own up to our future and to manage present and change the future so it can work. We are many of us representing in the UN. What happens if we join our votes in the UN and claim things, because organizations have been leaving everything behind, because we see how the World Trade Organization and how commodities have been used as a financial tool, while FAO claims that there will be a hunger. What is this world? How does it work? A politician of Argentina who I loved very much and who I worked alongside in my youth, Antonio Cafiero, he had this saying that I always took it for my own. All of this that I've been saying, you can say it's utopian. And utopia is something that is not possible to make, that is in our head, a dream, a crazy person's dream. But Antonio said, when you dream on your own, you just dream. But when you dream with others, you can change the world. What happens if we all dream together in changing this reality? What happens if the South, for once, stands up and says, enough with this injustice? Why won't this reality change then if we all do it? The words of Antonio, and with this I'd like to conclude, remind me of a few words of Fidel Castro. I'm in his land. Fidel said, when we need to grow paths over water, over land, he chose men of the people to carry out this enterprise. The great works, Fidel said, are designed by engineers, but they are carried out by dreamers. Like Antonio said, like Fidel said, we need many dreamers today chasing the dream of a fairer and more equal world. Thank you very much.